In the middle of the night, the phone rang inside Michael Jackson's private room. On the other end of the line, his mother was crying, not whispering, not calming herself, but begging. "Michael, please stop. I'm asking you as your mother." What she heard moments later would haunt her forever, because the reason Katherine Jackson was pleading for her son to stop had nothing to do with fame, and everything to do with a secret Michael had been hiding from almost everyone. What really happened during that phone call stayed buried for years. Until now. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our emotional stories about Michael Jackson. The year was 1993. Michael Jackson was at the absolute peak of global fame, and yet emotionally he had never felt more alone. From the outside, the world saw sold-out stadiums, moonwalks under blinding lights, and a man whose name echoed across every continent. But inside his quiet room that night, Michael sat on the edge of his bed, shoulders slumped, staring at the floor as if it held answers it refused to give. His body was exhausted. His mind was louder than any screaming crowd. The walls of the room felt closer than usual, as if fame itself was pressing in. Medical bottles lined the table beside him. Not trophies, not awards, but silent reminders of how fragile he had become. Michael rubbed his hands together nervously, a habit he had carried since childhood. He hadn't planned to call his mother. In fact, he had promised himself he wouldn't. Katherine always sensed when something was wrong, sometimes even before he spoke. But somehow she knew. When the phone rang, Michael hesitated. He already felt the weight of her voice before he even answered. "Michael," she said softly. Her tone wasn't accusatory. It was familiar, maternal, loving, and that was what made it dangerous. Because Michael knew, once his mother heard the truth, nothing would ever be the same. Outside, flashes from paparazzi cameras lit up the distant windows like artificial lightning. Even in moments of silence, the world refused to leave him alone. Katherine didn't waste time. "Michael, I heard things today," she said carefully, "things that scare me." Michael closed his eyes. For years, he had shielded her from the darkest parts of his life. He had protected her heart the same way she had protected his when he was a child, praying beside his bed, reminding him that God saw him even when the world didn't. But now, the shield was cracking. "I'm fine, Mama," he replied automatically. Too quickly. There was a pause on the line. A mother's pause. "No," Katherine said quietly. "You're not." Michael swallowed hard. His throat tightened. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. That's when she said the words that made his chest ache. "Michael, whatever you're doing to survive right now, please stop." He gripped the phone tighter. Because she didn't know everything yet. But she knew enough to be afraid. And what Michael was about to admit would explain why his mother was begging him to stop, and why this phone call would change their relationship forever. Michael didn't answer right away. The phone remained pressed to his ear, but his mind drifted somewhere far from the room, back to stages flooded with light, back to cheers that felt distant now, back to a version of himself that no longer existed. Katherine waited. She always did. "Michael," she said again, this time firmer, "tell me the truth." He exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of silence in one breath. "I'm just tired, Mama." It was a half-truth, and Katherine heard it immediately. Tired didn't explain the tremor in his voice. Tired didn't explain why his doctors were calling her behind his back. Tired didn't explain the reports she had heard that morning. Whispers that her son was barely sleeping, barely eating, barely holding himself together. Earlier that day, Katherine had received a call she never expected. It came from someone close to Michael's inner circle, someone who had seen him up close, away from cameras and fans. The voice on the other end had been hesitant, almost apologetic. "I don't want to scare you," the person said, "but your son, he's pushing himself too far. He won't stop, even when his body is begging him to." That was when Katherine's hands began to shake. She had raised 9 children. She knew exhaustion. She knew stress. But what she was hearing about Michael went beyond any of that. This wasn't just pressure from fame. This was something deeper, something dangerous. Back on the phone, Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the carpet as if confessing to the floor was easier than confessing to his mother. "They expect me to be perfect," he said quietly. "Every night, every show, every appearance." Catherine closed her eyes. "Who was they?" she asked. Michael didn't answer immediately, because the truth was complicated. They were the fans who needed him. They were the executives counting millions. They were the media waiting for him to fail. They were ghosts of his childhood, still demanding more. They were voices that never slept. "I can't slow down," Michael finally said. "If I stop, everything catches up to me." Catherine felt a cold chill run through her chest. "What do you mean by that?" she asked. Michael shifted uncomfortably. He glanced at the table beside him. The bottles, the prescriptions, the quiet arrangement of pills that promised relief but delivered something else entirely. "I mean," he said carefully, "that when I stop moving, it hurts." That was when Catherine's voice broke. "Hurt how, Michael?" He hesitated again. Too long. In that silence, Catherine understood something terrifying. Her son had been carrying pain he never allowed her to see. Not the kind that healed with rest. Not the kind that passed with prayer alone. This was the kind of pain that demanded escape. That night, Michael finally admitted what he had been avoiding for months. The headaches, the burning in his body after performances, the insomnia that left him staring at ceilings until sunrise, the anxiety that wrapped around his chest like a tightening rope. Doctors had given him solutions. Quick ones, temporary ones. And Michael, desperate to keep going, had accepted them. "I only take what they give me," he said defensively, as if anticipating her fear. "I don't abuse anything." Catherine didn't raise her voice. That scared Michael more than if she had. "Baby," she said softly, "anything you need just to feel normal. That's already too much." Michael's fingers trembled around the phone. "You don't understand," he replied. "I have rehearsals, meetings, the tour, people depending on me." Catherine leaned forward in her chair, tears streaming freely now. "I understand something very clearly," she said. "You're killing yourself to make everyone else happy." The words hung heavy between them. Outside Michael's room, a knock echoed faintly. Someone from his team checking in, making sure he was ready for the next obligation, the next demand. Michael ignored it. For the first time that night, his voice cracked. "I don't know how to stop," he whispered. That was the moment Catherine's fear turned into desperation. "Then listen to me," she pleaded. "Stop tonight. Cancel whatever you have to cancel. Come home. Rest." Michael shook his head instinctively, though she couldn't see him. "I can't," he said. "If I stop now, they'll think I'm weak." Catherine's response came instantly. "So what?" she cried. "Let them think it. I'd rather have a weak son than no son at all." Michael's breath caught, because in that sentence, he heard something he hadn't allowed himself to consider. The possibility of not surviving this pace. The possibility that his body might give out before his spirit ever could. The knock at the door came again, louder this time. "Michael, we need you," a voice called from the hallway. He closed his eyes. "See," he told his mother. "They never stop." Catherine's voice rose, trembling but fierce. "Then you stop," she begged. "Please, I'm asking you as your mother." Tears rolled down Michael's cheeks now, silent and unstoppable. He wanted to obey. He wanted to rest. He wanted to be her son again, not the king of pop, not the global icon, just Michael. But the machine around him was already in motion. "I promise," he said quietly. "I'll slow down." Catherine didn't respond right away, because she knew that tone. It was the same tone he used as a child when he said he was fine, even when he wasn't. "Michael," she said one last time, voice barely above a whisper, "if you keep going like this, I'm afraid I'll lose you." Michael swallowed hard, and just before he could answer, just before he could say something he would later regret, another voice entered the room, a doctor, and what that doctor said next would reveal the real reason Catherine was begging her son to stop, and why this phone call was only the beginning of a much darker truth. Michael slowly lowered the phone from his ear when the doctor entered the room. The call with his mother hadn't ended, not officially, but it felt suspended in time. Catherine remained on the line, listening, praying, sensing that something critical was unfolding even though no one was speaking to her directly. The doctor's presence changed the air instantly. He was calm, too calm. "Michael," the doctor said gently, glancing at the bedside table, at the paperwork, at the faint tremor in Michael's hands. "You shouldn't be this agitated right now." Michael forced a small smile, the kind he had perfected over decades. "I'm fine," he said automatically. The doctor didn't argue. He simply looked at him, really looked at him, and then spoke words that cut through the room like ice. "You haven't slept properly in days. Your body is exhausted. Your heart rate is elevated. If you continue at this pace." He paused. Michael felt Catherine's silence on the other end of the line grow heavier. "We're going to have a serious problem." Catherine gasped softly. "Problem?" she asked sharply. "What kind of problem?" The doctor hesitated, suddenly aware that this conversation was no longer private. Michael's chest tightened. He hated this. Hated being talked about as if he weren't there. Hated the fear in his mother's voice. "I'm okay, Mama," he said quickly. "Please don't worry." But Catherine wasn't listening to him anymore. She was listening to the truth she had been trying not to face. "Doctor," she said firmly, "tell me exactly what's going on with my son." The doctor chose his words carefully. "Mrs. Jackson, Michael's body is under extreme stress, physical and emotional. If he doesn't slow down, rest, and reduce his reliance on medication, the consequences could be severe." The word severe echoed in Michael's head. He turned away, staring out the window at the darkness beyond the glass. For a brief moment, the reflection staring back at him looked unfamiliar. Thinner, paler, older than he felt inside. Catherine's voice softened again, but this time it carried something deeper than fear. It carried memory. "Michael," she said, "do you remember when you were little and you used to cry because you were afraid to fall asleep?" Michael closed his eyes. Of course he remembered. He had been afraid of the dark, afraid of silence, afraid of disappointing everyone if he rested when others worked. "You used to call for me," she continued. "No matter how tired I was, I always came, because you were my baby." Michael's throat tightened. "I'm still here," she whispered. "You don't have to do this alone." For a moment, the walls he had built around himself began to crack. He remembered lying in bed as a child, listening to his mother pray softly beside him. He remembered the safety of her presence, the feeling that no matter how hard the world was, there was one place where he didn't have to perform. That memory hit him harder than any doctor's warning. "I just want the pain to stop," Michael admitted quietly. "Just for a little while." Catherine inhaled sharply. "That's not stopping pain," she said. "That's running from it." The doctor shifted uncomfortably, sensing that this conversation had moved beyond medicine. Michael wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed by his own tears. "They don't see me," he said suddenly. "They see the image, the character, the myth." His voice cracked. "But when the lights go off, I'm just tired." Catherine's heart shattered. She had watched her son give everything to the world, his voice, his body, his privacy, and now she realized how little the world had given back. That's when Michael did something unexpected. He reached into the drawer beside his bed and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wasn't supposed to show anyone this," he said. "What is it?" Catherine asked. Michael unfolded it slowly. "It's a letter," he said, "from a fan." The doctor glanced over, curious. "She wrote it years ago," Michael continued. "She said my music helped her survive when she wanted to give up." His voice softened. "She said if I ever felt like giving up, I should remember that someone out there was still holding on because of me." Michael stared at the letter, his hands shaking. "I keep this with me," he admitted, "because some nights it's the only thing that reminds me why I keep going." Catherine listened in silence, tears streaming freely now. "That's beautiful," she said gently. "But, Michael, even the strongest people need rest." Michael nodded slowly. "I know," he whispered. "But what if I stop and I don't know how to start again?" That was the fear he never said out loud. Not death, not failure, but emptiness. The doctor finally spoke again. "There's another option," he said carefully. "A break, real rest, time away from the pressure." Michael laughed softly, humorless. A break from being Michael Jackson? He asked. Who am I without that? Catherine answered without hesitation. You're my son, she said, and that's enough. The words landed deep. For the first time that night, Michael allowed himself to imagine a version of life where he wasn't running, where he wasn't numbing pain just to survive another performance. But just as that fragile hope began to form, his phone buzzed again. Another call, another demand. Michael stared at the screen, knowing exactly what it meant. The world was calling him back, and the decision he made in the next few seconds would determine whether he listened to his mother's plea or continued down a path that might cost him everything. Michael stared at the buzzing phone as if it were alive. The name on the screen wasn't important. He already knew what it meant. Another schedule change, another demand, another reminder that the world did not pause just because his body and soul were begging him to. The doctor waited. Catherine waited. Time stretched painfully thin. Finally, Michael picked up the call, his voice instantly shifting. Softer, lighter, professional. The performer returning on command. Yes, I understand, he said. I'll be there. Catherine felt something collapse inside her. When Michael hung up, the silence in the room became unbearable. You said you'd slow down, she whispered. Michael didn't look at the phone. He didn't look at the doctor. He didn't look at anything at all. They moved rehearsal earlier, he said quietly. They're worried about delays. Catherine's voice sharpened. Delays? She repeated. Michael, you're not a machine. He finally looked up, eyes glassy. That's exactly what they think I am. The doctor stepped forward, lowering his voice. Michael, I strongly advise against pushing yourself tonight. Michael nodded absently, as if agreeing with a child he had no intention of obeying. I hear you, he said, but everyone in the room knew he wasn't listening. Catherine felt a surge of helpless anger, not at her son, but at the world surrounding him, the handlers, the executives, the endless parade of people who needed something from Michael Jackson, but never stopped to ask what Michael needed. Who's making these decisions? She demanded. Who told you this is okay? Michael hesitated. That hesitation said everything. There are contracts, he said carefully. Expectations. And your life? Catherine asked. Where does that fit into the contract? Michael didn't answer, because deep down he feared the truth, that his health, his peace, his humanity, all came second. The doctor cleared his throat. I need to be honest, he said. If Michael continues using medication to push through exhaustion, the risks increase dramatically. Catherine closed her eyes, bracing herself. Risks like what? She asked. The doctor chose his words with precision. Cardiac strain, severe dependency, psychological breakdown. Each word landed like a blow. Michael stood up abruptly, pacing the room. Please stop talking about me like I'm dying, he snapped, frustration breaking through his composure. I'm still here. Catherine's voice trembled. That's exactly what I'm afraid of losing. Michael froze. Her words pierced through layers of denial he had carefully constructed. He wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself, wanted to explain that stopping felt impossible. Instead, his shoulders sagged. You don't know what's like out there, he said softly. They wait for me to fail. The press, the rumors, the accusations. If I show weakness, they'll destroy me. Catherine remembered the boy who once cried after missing a single note in rehearsal. She remembered how sensitive he had always been, how deeply he felt everything. They've already taken so much from you, she said. Don't let them take your life too. Michael rubbed his temples, wincing. The pressure in his head pulsed relentlessly. This isn't just about the shows, he admitted. It's about silence. Catherine leaned closer to the phone. What do you mean? When everything stops, he said slowly, the noise inside gets louder. The doctor listened intently now. The memories, Michael continued, the expectations, the feeling that I'm never enough. He swallowed hard. The medication, it quiets that. Catherine felt her heart break in a way she couldn't describe. So that's why, she whispered. That's why you won't stop. Michael didn't deny it. I don't want to feel empty, he said, or scared. The doctor spoke gently. There are safer ways to face that pain, Michael. Michael shook his head. They take time. And time is the one thing I don't have. Another knock came at the door. This one was urgent. Michael, the car is ready, someone called out. Catherine's voice rose, trembling with desperation. Please, she begged. Just a night. Stay. Rest. Pray with me like we used to. Michael closed his eyes. For a brief second, he almost said yes. He almost told the world to wait. But then the familiar fear returned. The fear of backlash, of headlines, of being labeled difficult, unreliable, broken. I can't disappoint them, he said quietly. Catherine's voice cracked completely. And what about disappointing yourself? Michael felt tears spill freely now. I don't know who I am without this, he confessed. If I stop being everything for everyone, what's left? Catherine answered without hesitation. A man who deserves to live. Michael stood still, torn between two realities. One offered rest, vulnerability, and uncertainty. The other offered control, applause, and slow destruction. He picked up his jacket. I'll call you later, he said softly. Catherine knew that tone. It was the tone of a son walking away from safety. Not because he wanted to, but because he felt trapped. Michael, she said urgently, promise me one thing. He paused. Promise me you'll tell me when it gets worse. Michael hesitated. Then he said, I promise. But as he walked toward the door, even he wasn't sure that promise could be kept. Because the truth was, it was already worse than anyone knew. And the world was about to push him even further. Toward a breaking point no amount of fame could protect him from. The door closed softly behind Michael. The sound echoed longer than it should have. Catherine remained on the line, listening to the empty space where her son's presence had been moments before. She could hear movement now. Footsteps, distant voices, the rustle of people preparing him for departure, the world reclaiming him. But then, unexpectedly, Michael spoke again. Mama, don't hang up. Her heart tightened. I'm here, she said immediately. The car engine started somewhere below. Michael stood near the window, watching shadows shift across the pavement. His reflection stared back at him, fragmented by the glass. There's something I didn't tell you, he said quietly. Catherine felt it instantly, that instinct only a mother has when truth is about to surface. What is it, Michael? He hesitated longer than ever before. The doctor had already left the room. The handlers were outside. For the first time that night, Michael was truly alone with his mother, and with the secret he had buried the deepest. I don't just take the medication to sleep, he admitted. Catherine's breath caught. I take it so I don't dream. The words landed with devastating weight. What do you mean? She asked softly. Michael leaned his forehead against the glass. When I sleep without it, I relive things, he said. Not as memories, as if they're happening again. Catherine felt her chest tighten painfully. Michael, she whispered. What things? He closed his eyes. The silence stretched, thick and terrifying. Being a child who never got to be a child. He said finally, being afraid to mess up, being afraid to rest, being afraid to say no. Catherine's hand trembled against the phone. I thought I had made peace with it, Michael continued. But lately, it's been coming back stronger. His voice lowered. Nightmares. The word shattered her. What kind of nightmares? She asked, already fearing the answer. Ones where I'm small again, he said. Ones where I can't escape the stage. Ones where no matter how hard I sing, it's never enough. Catherine covered her mouth, tears flowing freely now. I wake up panicking, Michael confessed. My heart racing, my body shaking. And once that starts, I can't stop it. Catherine realized then, this wasn't about fame anymore. This was about survival. That's why you're afraid to stop, she said slowly. Because when you stop, the past catches you. Michael didn't respond. His silence confirmed everything. I didn't want you to know, he said after a moment. I didn't want you to feel guilty. Catherine's voice broke. Guilty, she cried. Oh, Michael. She had spent years believing her prayers had protected him. That love had been enough. And now she understood some wounds don't disappear just because time passes. I should have seen it, she whispered. I should have asked more. Michael shook his head. You tried to protect me, he said. Just like I'm trying to protect you now. Catherine's pain turned into resolve. Then listen to me, she said firmly. Running from pain doesn't heal it. It only makes it louder. Michael sighed deeply. I know, he said, but I don't know how to face it without falling apart. The car horn sounded outside. Time was slipping away. There's something else, Michael added suddenly. Catherine's heart skipped. What is it? His voice dropped even lower. Sometimes I'm afraid to sleep at all, he admitted, because I'm scared I won't wake up. The admission stunned her. That's not normal fear, she said gently. That's your body warning you. Michael laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. And yet, every night, I take the risk. Catherine closed her eyes and prayed silently. Michael, she said, voice steady despite the tears, promise me you'll get help beyond this circle. Not just doctors who keep you going, but people who help you heal. Michael didn't answer right away. I don't want the world to know, he said. I don't want them to see me as broken. Catherine responded without hesitation. You are not broken, she said. You are wounded. There's a difference. Michael inhaled sharply. Her words reached a place no one else had ever touched. I'm tired of being strong, he whispered. That sentence hurt more than anything else he had said. I know, Catherine replied, and that's why I'm begging you to stop. Not forever, just long enough to save yourself. Michael felt tears slide down his face as he stepped away from the window. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine confronting the past instead of silencing it. But then reality crashed back in. A voice outside called his name again. They're waiting, he said quietly. Catherine sensed the moment slipping through her fingers. Michael, she said urgently, if something happens to you, I need you to know this. He stopped. You were never created to suffer in silence, she continued. You were created to bring light, but even light needs rest. Michael pressed the phone to his chest. I love you, Mama, he said. I love you more than you'll ever know, she replied. The line went quiet. Michael ended the call. As he walked toward the waiting car, his mind replayed every word his mother had spoken, every warning, every plea, and for the first time, he acknowledged a truth he could no longer ignore. The medication wasn't just helping him sleep. It was keeping him from facing a pain that demanded to be heard. And unless something changed soon, that pain would eventually take control, in ways no one could stop. The car door closed behind Michael with a muted thud. As the vehicle pulled away, city lights blurred past the window, stretching into long, trembling lines. Michael leaned his head back against the seat, eyes closed, his mother's voice still echoing in his chest. You were never created to suffer in silence. The words wouldn't let him go. His body was moving forward, but something inside him had stopped. For the first time in years, the noise in his head wasn't loud, it was heavy, pressing, demanding to be felt. At the rehearsal space, everything was already waiting for him. The lights, the mirrors, the dancers stretching, the music cues taped to the floor. Applause broke out the moment he stepped inside. Not real applause, reflex applause. Habit, gratitude mixed with relief. Michael smiled automatically, but it didn't reach his eyes. He took his position at center stage, staring at his reflection in the mirror. For a brief, unsettling moment, he didn't recognize a man looking back at him. He looked fragile, older than his years. Human. From the top, someone called out. The music began. Michael moved on instinct, muscle memory carrying him forward. Every step was precise, every turn flawless. His body knew what to do even when his heart didn't. But halfway through the routine, something shifted. His chest tightened suddenly. Not pain, not exactly, but pressure, like air refusing to reach his lungs. He missed a step. The room went silent. Michael froze. That never happened. I'm sorry, he said quickly, trying to laugh it off. Let's go again. But as the music restarted, his vision blurred. The mirror seemed too bright, the sound too loud. And then it hit him, not as fear, but as memory. He was small again, standing on a stage too big for his body, lights burning his eyes, A voice shouting from the wings to do it again. Better this time. Perfect this time. Michael's hands began to shake. "Michael," someone called. "You okay?" He tried to answer. No sound came out. The room felt like it was closing in, walls inching closer with every breath he couldn't finish. His heart pounded violently, as if trying to escape his chest. This was it. This was what he had been running from. He staggered backward, collapsing onto a chair as people rushed toward him. Voices overlapped. Questions piled up. "Do you need water? Should we call someone?" "Michael, look at me." He pressed his palms against his eyes, breathing fast, uneven. "I'm not strong enough," a voice whispered inside him. And then another voice answered. His mother's. "You don't have to be." Tears streamed down his face before he even realized he was crying. "I need a minute," he said hoarsely. The room cleared reluctantly. Michael sat alone, shaking, his chest rising and falling like he had just run for miles. For the first time in years, he didn't reach for anything to numb it. No pills, no distractions, no escape, just breath, just pain, just truth. He thought of the letter from a fan, of how his music had helped someone survive. And suddenly, a devastating realization hit him. He had spent his entire life saving others, but had never learned how to save himself. Michael lowered his head into his hands and sobbed. Not quietly, not politely, but deeply, from a place he had locked away since childhood. Minutes passed, or hours. He didn't know. When he finally looked up, the room felt different, still demanding, still heavy, but no longer suffocating. He stood slowly and walked back toward the mirror. "This is me," he whispered. "All of me. Not the icon, not the myth, just a man who had been strong for too long." When the door opened again, his team expected instructions. Instead, they saw something else. A Michael Jackson who looked exhausted, but present. "I'm done for tonight," he said calmly. The words stunned him. "But," someone started. "I said I'm done," he repeated. Not angry, not defensive, certain. Silence followed. No one argued. As he left the rehearsal space, something inside him shifted. Not healed, not fixed, but acknowledged. That night, alone in his room, Michael didn't sleep right away. He sat on the bed, phone in his hands, staring at his mother's number. Then he pressed call. "Mama," he said when she answered, voice trembling but steady. "I stopped." Catherine inhaled sharply on the other end. "Thank God," she whispered. "I don't know what comes next," he admitted. "But I didn't take anything tonight." Catherine cried openly now. "That's enough for tonight," she said. "One step is enough." Michael lay back, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in a long time, fear didn't control him. It sat beside him, acknowledged but not obeyed. As sleep finally came, fragile and uncertain, Michael understood something profound. Strength wasn't about enduring endless pain. Sometimes strength was choosing to stop, and that choice, small and visible to the world, would quietly change everything that came after.